And at this point in time, let's go beyond, the news and analyze further. We're very privileged this morning to host Canon Eric Okeyo, who is a security practitioner, and I will also add security professional. A lot of questions being raised about how the police behaved, among other things. It's very good to have you this morning on the, the broadcast. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
It's vividly a sad state of events. Lives lost, destruction of property, vandalism, orchestrated vividly. And the question right now that a lot of Kenyans are asking is, we need some accountability. Is it a question of who was in command? You are a security practitioner. Well, let's start from there.
Thank you. First of all, it's a sad day. Sad day even for me as a Kenyan, as a security practitioner, as a having been a public person within government in the past, that the reaction to these protests by government has been very bad. Excessive use of force. Today, nobody knows the actual number of fatal victims. The president is saying 6. The media is saying 20-something. Families that are looking for their kin in their hundreds. It's a very sorry state. And when you have a situation where the president now says he wants to talk, but as he says he wants to talk, the genesis was the Finance Bill 2024. The people behind him who are clapping when he says he wants to talk are the same ones who passed the punitive finance bill. They ignored the views of Kenyans. Times have changed. This is not the prehistoric time of our grandfathers and forefathers and our parents. These children have overtaken us. I have them in my house. They are too digital for any thought. So they are ahead of us. When they raise issues, listen to them. If we had listened 2 weeks ago and withdrew the finance bill 2024, we would be talking of having a responsible government. The problem is, government must own up. Its own deputy president has said they have a problem. Miles away from the president, he says, this loss, this destruction of property, loss of lives is because of negligence of government. Full stop. This is the deputy president. This is a person who sits in the National Security Committee, chaired by the president. He sits there. When he says the negligence is on the part of the government, and then the president comes to that section of MPs who voted for what is now making us lose lives, I have a problem.
And if you want to go deeper into the remarks of the deputy president, now that you brought it up, Kenyans feel there's a whole shift on this matter. NYS, the intelligence,
NIS.
Yes, NIS, the intelligence service. What would be your thoughts on these remarks by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua in the first place?
First, they are a sign that government is dysfunctional. That's
as
where
a whole?
It begins.
As a whole?
As a whole.
Okay.
Because the National Intelligence Service is not a force, it is a service. Its business is simple. Detect early warning signs, if you were to call it in security, early warning signs. Say, this is the potential of this violence, if the protests have this likelihood, if we do not do this. And then they give advisory. The Director General of National Intelligence Service is the Chief Security Advisor to the President. But the presidency in Kenya includes Gachagua. So we cannot be saying that the president speaks tough to us when we have lost lives, says he is coming for financiers, saboteurs, abettors, orchestrators. And then 500 kilometers away, his deputy says, no, we don't have financiers, orchestrators, abettors, and saboteurs. We failed as government. The world is watching. Only the international community has been silent. The UN has spoken through its Secretary General. The African Union has spoken through Musa Mohamed Faki, the chair. In the country, we are unable to comprehend it. The church has now spoken with one voice. And I tell you, the Finance Bill 2024 is just one. IMF have spoken. They are saying There's too much luxury spending in the government. There's no austerity. My friend, these are the people who give us money. They are saying we are a luxury spender. And that if we became strict and had fidelity to austerity, we would not need to increase taxes after all. So what happened? Let's call it for what it is.
Okay.
The National Intelligence Service is just one unit, but there is someone in charge of government called the president. Mm-hmm. So what the deputy president fell short of saying is that we have failed, him and his boss.
All right, there is that part of the government, but because of time, let's get into also what Kenyans are saying, especially even on my YouTube, stream right now. We've seen children as young as, of course, 5 years old. An autistic child was equally killed. There is a concern of who is, we've seen rubber bullets, we've seen abductions. Let's even talk about the abductions that the police so far have distanced themselves from. Where do we start from? The Law Society, of course, president spoke to the Spice FM today talking about, suing who they have to sue, but nobody's taking responsibility for these abductions to start with. Let's tap on your security, expertise on these abductions.
The footages we have seen on TV about the alleged abductions don't show abductors who are criminals. Show people who are clearly organized and they know who they are coming for, and therefore they are security agents of government. That's why when one of your colleagues asked the president in State House that same question you're asking me, if you remember his answer, if you could play it, the answer was simple, that those who are alleged to have been abducted have been found in police custody. A clear admission that the abductors are security agencies by the commander-in-chief, who came to power and said, ours will be a government that is comfortable with criticism. Ours will be a government that will not use security agencies to manage political dissent. And can I tell you another person who has failed Kenyans? The 13th Parliament.
You speak in its totality?
I speak in its totality.
All right.
Yeah, I think I would rather call it in its totality. One of the current sitting members of that parliament has come out in open and said that to vote for this bill, you had to be paid 2 million shillings. You know it is punitive. You know it's going to affect the people who voted you to come to the 13th Parliament. But because of a stipend of 2 million, you vote for it. What happened by the protesters reaching Parliament was simply a sign of a vote of no confidence in that Parliament. If I were the president, I would have dissolved it now. In fact, my request to the president is Kenyans have clearly sent a vote of no confidence in the 13th Parliament. Dissolve it now.
Dissolve it.
Dissolve it so that people can start talking. You can start the efforts to reconstruct confidence of the public in their government, but dissolve this parliament. I do not see, I cannot imagine how people will say we have a parliament coming back when one of them said we were being paid 2 million to vote. And if the president was also listening, this is the time for him to start from top to everybody in the executive, to everybody in parliament, to declare their wealth, to say how much are they worth today and how much were they worth 2 years ago before they took over power. Because that speaks to the issues the Generation Z are talking about, corruption. Because this is when you hear of a cabinet secretary wearing a watch that goes for, I don't know, 4 million. A member of parliament wearing shoes that go for 1.6 million. A fellow who was in school when we were working. And we know how much it pays to be a member of the parliament, National Assembly or Senate. We know.
All right, if I may interject quickly, because it was a reject finance bill to occupy parliament, occupy State House.
Yes.
And now it's gotten to deal with the corruption that you're speaking to.
Thank you very much.
In fact, they're saying now Ruto must go. are in the right trajectory. If we had to go, you've talked about deal with the corruption, but the Ruto must go part of it. They're actually calling him to, in fact, exit.
It's a time bomb. It's a time bomb. You ignore that generation at your own peril. And I am speaking as a security practitioner, as a leader of a church, that generation speaks about tomorrow. Sadly, they know more than we know about good governance and about how to mismanage a country. They are convinced that this country is mismanaged. And that's why you saw the protests, peaceful ones, the peaceful protests by the Gen Zs, very peaceful. They were all over, from Uasin Gishu, where the president comes from, to Nyeri, where his deputy comes from, to Vihiga, where Musalia comes from, all over. Now, in fact, I have a problem with the protests of yesterday. I don't believe they were genuinely the Gen Z protesters, if you ask me as a practitioner.
Why so?
The ones of yesterday were, if you look at the lootings that were in town, you saw a group of people with, the djembe sticks, trying in the name of wanting to protect themselves. You saw that in Eldoret. For us who are in that space, we are able to add a dot to a dot. Those ones were organized by someone. I don't know who, but these ones of yesterday were organized. They were not the spontaneous Gen Z. Those boys were very peaceful. They were saying, we are peaceful. Along the way, you then cannot stop a situation where, criminals come in. But by and large, the original intention of these protests were peaceful, were to tell the president, look, all I have is a degree certificate, whether first undergraduate, master's, or PhD, and I am jobless, and I have my smartphone. So this finance bill 2024 will cost me to pay loans in future when I start working, loans I do not know how were spent. A very genuine question. A very genuine question, because by the time these Gen Zs work and they get to our ages, we will be gone. We will not be here. But they'll pay these debts to the Bretton Woods institutions, to IMF, to World Bank. They will pay these debts that someone mismanaged. You know why they are angry, and why I'm saying people must declare their wealth? Is people are having unimaginable residences across the country, across the world. Guys who were struggling the other day, I saw someone saying he lost drinks in his pub and that it cost him billions to do the pub. And you are struggling to justify the authenticity of early learning education credentials. It's untidy.
It's saying it's untidy. Eric, we want to close this conversation, but some are saying, even though the president has extended an olive branch, they're saying it might not be a really good way to start if we don't talk about the compensation of particular victims. And to move forward, we're looking at, live bullets being used in such situations. As we close with your closing remarks, which is our way forward really, genuinely and realistically as a country?
Sounds unrealistic, but if you want me to give you a genuine answer,
okay,
a genuine one where we are, first of all, the reaction by the president is too little, too late. Where was he when these things began? He would have arrested the situation we are in long before it got here. It's easy to bury ourselves under the table here and say the fatal casualties are 6. But it will not be easy not to see the families that will be burying victims of gunshot wounds. You do not respond to innocent civilian, armless protesters by live bullets. You don't do that. But we have reached a level where the finance bill has just become the first point. Looks like now it is opening new ones. And that's why I'm saying your MPs have admitted that they were being paid 2 million to vote. Dissolve that parliament. Reorganize your government, because within cabinet there are ministers who are living outside reasonable means. And I am sure NIS has told the president about those ministers. There are those who are struggling to comprehend English sentences in a meeting, and they're in cabinet. Get them out. Then we will now begin a conversation to see you mean it. You came through the church carrying a Bible. Now you're in power. I don't know where the Bible is. But dissolve parliament. My clarion call would be, this parliament has lost morality to be in existence. Dissolve it. Go to your cabinet, do a reorganization. Let's see people jobless.
All right.
When your MP is saying we were bribed, when your deputy president is saying no, we are the ones who are wrong, dysfunctional.
And of course, we will, as you know, have a stand that the allegations of the bribe the members of parliament received are allegations. Investigations will be done. Eric, I know you come from your own point of view.
Yes.
But we still treat them as allegations. You talked about one member of parliament, but
yes,
of course,
yes.
You insist.
He did it publicly.
Publicly.
Yeah, he did
but
it
you
publicly.
have just given your word to the president saying, if we have to start from somewhere, dissolve
parliament.
The parliament, reorganize your house.
Yes.
Canon Eric Okeyo, who is a security practitioner, thank you for creating time for that quick fire. And for you Kenyans watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. You know, somebody once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I pray for the Kiswahili team to give you this coverage in Kiswahili. Stay woke. My name is Anki Doris Ombata.